Why is it? Heyo. It's Friday afternoon, which must mean that it's time to get on YouTube and do a stream. And look, everyone, look, it's Vish. Vish is here. Hey, Vish,
Hi.
how's it going?
How's
I'm gonna
it going?
find. There we go. Oh.
Okay. I was just gonna quote David Lynch and just say, if you can believe it, it's a Friday once again.
Is it freezing down there in California?
It's cold. It's not freezing, but it's cold. We got some
Yeah.
rain and then, temperatures dropped, so it does feel like winter.
Yeah, it was so cold here yesterday. It was cold and windy and clear. We lost power for like 4 hours,
Ooh.
because probably because something got blown over. That that happens sometimes. So, but yeah, it's still cold today, but it's supposed to be warming up a little bit. So yeah, Noise Ending was here first. He's one of my Hebrew students. You guys did an exam this last week. I hope it was okay. Cuneiform guy is here, and Simone is here. You know I'm gonna show up, right? Like it's I may be a minute or two behind, but I'll get there. Hey Holly, it's good to see you. An alias fake name. Birthday. Anyone else get served 3 ads instead of the usual 2?
Nope, because I use ad blockers. Fuck at YouTube.
Yes, and I'm on StreamYard, so but
Yeah.
yes. Prixie's here. Furry Fatal is here, and Lil is happy to see you. Vish, the weirdo CK Evan is here. People were concerned.
Why did you have some problems last week?
Well, I thought things went actually quite well, all things considered, because I tried something last week. And in the end it went okay, but not without a hitch. It was not entirely smooth sailing. So there was a fundraiser last week for a member in the community at Skeptic Haven, and I had asked to participate, so I thought I'd just hop on and see if I could simulcast the thing. So what I did was I just shared the broadcast on StreamYard and pulled everything else off the stage and put that up, right? And then just went over to their StreamYard link.
Okay.
And the problem, however, was that I am unable to mute my stuff in StreamYard. So then I had a 2.5 second delay between our live conversation and the broadcast, and was having to pay extremely close attention to what people were saying because it was driving the hell out of me. But yeah, there were there were undoubtedly some other issues. Well, I can show you this. It was serious enough that that Simone had a message for me. I think you'll appreciate it here. Um, so I don't know how much of that you can read. I had to. I squinted and I couldn't figure out what Bayotov was, and but yeah. Do you want me to translate this for the
I
audience, or you got it?
recognize a spelling of my name, Vishanti.
There you go. Yeah. So a fool says in his heart.
The fool says it in his heart.
I
can
will
I can
go.
go.
I can go on YouTube.
I can go on YouTube without Vishanti. I remember this.
So yeah, that I actually think I think that was before the simulcast part, and I did okay. Now the problem happened when I was trying to figure out how to get rid of the echo, right? So I just muted everything. And then everybody over here couldn't hear anything. And I wasn't following the local chat. I wasn't following our chat while I was on the other broadcast. So my Discord was going off, and then I had to run back and turn the sound off. So yeah, it wasn't perfect. I'll admit that. But we managed, and we're all, excuse me, very, very happy that you're back. You were dearly missed, and
That's
so
good.
thank
Feels good.
for being here as you always are. So I don't know. Did you see the thumbnail for today?
I saw it. Yes, I did.
Okay.
I didn't stare at it for very long, but I did see it.
Okay. It's it's
yes, that's right. Welcome to hell.
It's the same thumbnail I used last week, except I added you and the number 2 there. But honestly, what do I need to do?
You need to understand that there is one thing that is guaranteed to make me laugh every time. Laser eyes.
Laser eyes? Yeah, I should have given you
laser eyes.
I should have. Sorry. I'll do that next time. but yeah, I don't know. I think it's one of my favorite thumbnails that I've made. So I just thought, yeah, let's do it again. It's pretty great. So so you missed last week. We talked about hell. It was Friday the 13th, and we were talking about hell. It was the day before Valentine's Day, and we were talking about hell. And it was I was covering, and we'll continue with this today. Back before the holidays, Kirk Cameron, you're familiar with this guy. Used to be a heartthrob on. Did you ever watch him on Growing Pains? Do you remember that far back?
A little, but it's like, man, that's 30 years ago.
It's so long
he's
ago.
Still riding that. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
What have you done since then?
Oh, well, he became like an insufferable fundamentalist and a Christian apologist since then. So that's what he did. He's good buddies, or at least used to be, with like Ray Comfort and Todd Friel, and those guys. And it was just before the holidays. He has his own show excuse me, his own podcast, and had one of his kids on to talk about hell, uh, and
Okay.
exploring questions about it, because it sounds like he started to actually look a little more closely at what's in his Bible. And when he expressed that he didn't know anymore how he felt about this idea of eternal conscious torment, this caused some serious disruption in
Mm-hmm.
the evangelical Twitter sphere. And as a result, it was so serious he had to assemble a panel of experts, which includes Gavin Ortland and Paul Copan and a guy by the name of Dan Harrington, who is in Australia and seems really bright, actually. I'm actually pretty impressed based on what I saw in this sit down roundtable that they had, and Chris Date, who runs a ministry just based on rethinking the idea of eternal conscious torment. Which if you're going to stick with the doctrine, then I think there's better ways to do it than just imagining that people are going to suffer for all eternity. So I'm okay with all that. So they sat around and they had this 2.5 hour conversation. Most of it's really boring, actually. I think it's interesting though, and as I mentioned to the chat last week, part of my problem with it, as we all know, one of the big problems with these sorts of conversations in evangelical spaces is always
univocal voice.
right. There's always this presumption that you must take everything in between the covers of your Protestant Bible seriously as the uncontested, consistent Word of God, and you have to figure out how you're going to sort all that and piece all those pieces together in situations where, let's face it, they don't always align really well. So that's part of the problem. The other problem that I had with this video and with this roundtable discussion, I think there was some good discussion points that occurred during it, but the thing that troubled me quite a bit, and what I wanted to get into last week and want to continue this week, is that there seemed to be amongst this group of 5 gentlemen, all white men sitting around and talking about this. It seemed to me that within this group there just was no awareness or acknowledgement of the very fact, the reality that this is an idea that developed. This is an idea that took on a life of its own long after a lot of the texts in the Hebrew Bible were written, and there's a tendency to read varying ideas of this idea against one another in an attempt to bring them into conversation with one another. I felt like without a clear historical perspective of this development, you're really missing the boat for a lot of it. So it's this is one of those things that, for me at least, when I was still a confessing evangelical, was an idea that really pushed me to really eventually pushed me out, I think. So yeah, that's that's where we're at today. So I don't know. You got anything before
Scott is asking,
Oh yeah,
how
let's
is
talk
becoming a
about
rabbi?
this.
So, I mean, I'm still a long ways off. This retreat was the trying to remember what the word was for it that we gave it, but I'm gonna complete a 2 to 2.5 year program, which I'm in now. We just hit the 1 year mark, and that after that program, that initial stage is concluded, then there will be a proper structured rabbinical track. And until that time, I'm kind of assembling my own curriculum. So I've been taking Hebrew classes. I learned Dead Sea Scroll stuff from Kipp. I took history through a different school, like early Jewish history through a different school, just as a non-matriculated public student. I do a lot of like a la carte things that would be part of a normative rabbinic education. I'm just doing them now so that it'll help me later on when we get our formal thing together. So still in progress, still it's a while off, but I had a good retreat, so quite good. It's just I wasn't anticipating that the timing would happen when I'm trying to move, which is chaotic. So yeah,
It's always something, isn't it? That's
yep.
timing. Yeah. So, but that's cool. I got to see a bunch of pictures of petroglyphs that that Vish and
Yeah,
her friends had taken, which was badass. That was
petroglyphs in
awesome.
Albuquerque are stunning. You would absolutely miss them unless you walk just within a few feet. So
Is that right? Eh? Wow.
mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask you. The thought crossed my mind as I was thinking about you on your retreat. When you do become a rabbi, are you going to be Rabbi Vishanti, or are you going to go by your other name?
Ask me when I get to that point. I
Okay.
haven't
All right.
even
These
gotten
are
close to thinking that far ahead.
well, I
Let's
mean,
get going.
that's why you have people like me around to think about these things for you ahead of time, so that you don't have to. But I will
Okay.
be sure to give it lots of thought and put together a report and a presentation when the time comes.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Look, Titus Mad sent a super chat in. Because he's happy you're back too, and sad that I'm still here. Hey, Dad. It's yeah, well, there you are. It's good to see you. So, yeah, do you want to bring the video up, and we can
Sure.
start going through some of this. So some will be some of this I will repeat from last week a little bit. So and just to sort of set this up, I talked more extensively last week about the concept within the Hebrew Bible tradition of life after death, which exists entirely in Sheol, the place of the dead, the realm of the dead, which is under the ground. It's got a geography to it. We see that in a handful of texts. There's a story of the ground literally just swallowing a whole bunch of people up, and that's where they go. So this is and importantly, the word Sheol, which occurs over 60 times in the Hebrew Bible, when it's translated into Greek in the Septuagint, is almost always translated with the Greek word Hades, which, even if you don't know any Greek, is probably one of those Greek words that you recognize, because when we all did Greek mythology in elementary and junior high school, we knew Hades as the god of the dead and the place of the dead. Similar in many respects to the conception of Sheol in the Hebrew Bible. It's a place that everybody went to. It wasn't a happy place. It was kind of a depressing place of no memories or limited memories, a place of gloomy darkness, but a place where people continue to maintain rank or status, and some sort of pitiful existence. So the Hebrew Bible is certainly certainly doesn't celebrate anything after death for most of it. Um, but it recognizes that that this is a fate that awaits everyone, and it's not great being in Sheol, but it's just where everyone ends up. So there's some correspondence to the Greek idea of Hades. Of course, I think the the myth about what Hades is develops quite a bit beyond the limits that we see in the Hebrew Bible. So we don't know much beyond what is presented there. But this is the word, right? That the Greek translators chose to translate this word Sheol for describing the place of the underworld. It's an important point because the New Testament writers, the inventors, or the people who were the first to communicate to and about early Christians and early Christianity, uh, were reading the Septuagint, and they were also adopting this term in their own writings, in their own written literature. So we spent a lot of time last week kind of talking and focusing on that. We're going to pick up here. The guy, you recognize the guy on the right. That's Gavin. The guy sitting right beside him is Dan. I think it's Dan Harrington. I apologize if I got that wrong. But he's going to start talking here about another important concept that appears within the Hebrew Bible as it relates to the New Testament idea of hell, and that's the idea of the fire of Yahweh, the eternal fire, the consuming fire. So if you maybe want to just let it go, we'll start here, and we'll see how far we get. Probably like 1.25 at least, maybe 1.5 for playback. Let's see.
We'll start with 1.25.
Let's start with 1.25. Do I want
So does
do I
this
want
guy
captions?
to the left? Well, it's on Gavin's right, but it's our left.
Our
Does
left.
he also make excuses for biblical slavery, or do we not know that?
I don't know, actually. I haven't paid that much attention to him until
Okay.
this, and I was like, so just to kind of set this up too. Gavin and Paul Copan are defending the eternal conscious torment side of this conversation.
I'm not surprised.
No. And then Dan and the other guy, Chris Date, are countering that with what they call conditional immortality, or what is more commonly understood to be annihilationism, that people just are extinguished, are eliminated in the last days.
I have to read this. Todd is mad for two. Says Gavin looking like Neil McDonough's lame brother.
I don't know who Gavin Neil McDonough is. Who is
you do
that?
know who Neil McDonough is.
Do I?
You've seen
Okay.
Minority Report. He's the blonde hair, icy blue eyed.
Oh my God.
He's in everything.
He was in a cop show for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
he's been in a
part
lot of
this. And yeah, and there's more reasons to think that, so there he's one of these guys. You've seen this now. There's a bunch of these Hollywood guys who are making commercials for like a prayer app on YouTube.
Neil,
he's
I've
one of
met
those
him
guys.
Before. Yeah, he was in Band of Brothers. Thank you. That's where a lot of people will know him from, is Band of Brothers. But yeah, Neil is a very, very devout Catholic, as is widely known, and he was pretty well known for a while for insisting that he would not kiss another actor on screen unless it was his wife. So
is his wife also an actor?
I mean, she has done some acting, so yeah, he has gotten to follow through on that. But yeah, that was his thing, and it's like, all right, cool, whatever. I'm not surprised that he's shilling out for a prayer app, because I know Gwen Stefani's also doing that. It's a bunch of right-winger folks shilling out for this, because that's where the grift money is.
Oh my god, I used to
Yeah,
love Gwen
she's been
Stefani.
pushing this crap for a
Oh,
long time. She's been right wing for a
jeez.
long time.
That's so frustrating, man.
She's literally from
Yeah,
here. She's from Orange County, like Anaheim.
yeah, yeah. Oh, she was super cool once upon a time, but boy,
When her ska band was ska, and before she went pop and
yeah,
then married a country
right,
star and became a ultra
yeah.
conservative
Oh
right wing
god,
Christian. So
see. I think I lost track after she started doing pop music, but man. So no, he does, and he's in a bunch. I know he's appeared in a bunch of Angel Studios movies and shows now too. That's for people who don't know, Angel Studios is the evangelical Christian company that brought us The Chosen, as well as the new show on Amazon Prime, House of David, which is I think it's them. But that one's actually there's some things I like about that show. Not everything, but there's some things
well, it's funny to
I
me
like
that
about it.
they've managed to pull Neil McDonough, who is like a name actor, but
Yeah,
the evangelicals prop up a lot of this, but Neil is and he will tell you this, he is a very devout Catholic. So evangelicals are going to have some issues with that. Until it's convenient, of course.
indeed. This is
Yes. Good. That has I also choose this guy's dead wife. Reddit comment energy. That's what that was. Okay.
Oh,
Video thumbnail reminds me of the Venom song "Welcome to Hell." Relatively new to the channel. Keep up the great work.
nice.
Is
Hey,
it vegan
welcome.
vegan or vegan
Yeah.
degan?
Yes, let us know if it's vegan diggin or vegan diggin. But welcome to my channel, not hell. That's that's not where it's just Vish and me with these assholes who are in hell.
I
Nobody
love
else.
that it's been almost half an hour and we still haven't gotten to the video yet.
I know this
We're
is
right
normal.
on track.
Normal,
Right
right?
on track.
Okay.
Mhm.
So yeah. So press play because Dan's going to talk about this.
I think my
important
experience
concept
thinking about the imagery of
of
fire throughout the
fire.
Bible is when I was a traditionalist and writing my thesis defending the view is to see fire as having more a metaphor for some experience of torment or a negative psychological experience, and certainly defending more of the kind of C.S. Lewis picture of the gates of hell being locked from the inside. You start looking from the beginning of the Bible at what fire does whenever it interacts with sinful people. And so you've got this sort of paradigmatic judgment in Genesis 19 with Sodom and Gomorrah, where God calls down fire, or Yahweh calls down fire from Yahweh in heaven. It's a fascinating Trinitarian passage as well. But that literally consumes this fire and brimstone.
Do you want to pause it there?
There's no Trinity in the Hebrew Bible,
have
dude.
that one? Do you have that one? Can you bring it up?
Can you be more specific?
Oh, Genesis 19:24. Or is it 25? Yeah. So it just bugs me. And in part because I'm getting around eventually to doing a video on the two powers heresy, which was much later than this. But I've heard many Christian apologists point to this specific passage in the Hebrew Bible as somehow demonstrating the existence of, he said, a trinity. At best you could say
He's Trinitarian. I'm like,
a
what?
binity. But look at this text, and part of the problem, I think part of this has to do with the necessary steps that you have to take when you're translating from Hebrew into English. So here's the deal. It says, Yahweh rained down upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah brimstone. Gafrit. And Eish Me'et Adonai. So fire from Yahweh from the sky. So Yahweh rained down on Sodom and on Gomorrah brimstone and fire from Yahweh from the sky. And clever apologists look at this and go, oh, look, there's two Yahwehs, because one's up there and then one's down here, I guess. I don't know. But that's not really what the text is saying at all. I mean, when I read that, that looks like a clarifier to me. Like it looks to me like Ve'esh me'et Adonai min hashamayim, fire from Yahweh, from heaven, from the sky, is a clarification, simply, as where this is coming from. The fact that
I wanna
Yahweh is
know
named.
where he gets Trinitarian.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because, there has to be a Trinity if there's going to be more than one. It feels like if there's going to be more than one, it has to be at most 3 and not 2. So
4 is right out.
Yep. Yep. So I really wanted to point that out to people, that this text, when Trinitarians attempt to marshal this into their theology, is not the flex.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Sure.
That makes sense. 3 guys in chapter 18. This is read through that as well. Yeah. So one of them is Yahweh.
Jesus,
and
Metatron type shit. Type shit.
So one of them is
It says a
is
Trinity
Yahweh in
in
heaven.
my Bible, not in my good non-Christian
Perish
Minecraft.
the thoughts, Tad. So yeah.
All right.
All right. So fire from heaven consumes Sodom and Gomorrah.
Sodom and Gomorrah and all of their inhabitants, and smoke rises from them as a testimony to that destruction. And you follow that image right through the kind of biblical story. You see it too with what happens with the historical judgment on Edom, and again, kind of smoke rising forever as a historical judgment. You gave mention to that with the Jude passage, and that this becomes sort of the pattern then, where New Testament authors, like they're in Jude 7 or in 2 Peter chapter 2 verse 6, reduce them to ashes, making them a example of what he's going to do with the ungodly. Most of the fire imagery for me, as I read it, it seems to be that this is God consuming evil. Fire is a force of either purification for the righteous or consumption for evil and death, and that would.
I know this goes without saying, hopefully, but the story of the brimstone raining down and the sulfuric, fire and all that stuff, wouldn't you say that that's more likely an ideology for all of the sulfur balls you find around the Dead Sea area?
Yeah, certainly. I would think so. I think what he's getting at, and I don't disagree with him on this point, that the way that, and maybe he would agree too, that he probably thinks this is like a not necessarily an ideological point, but he probably look at it in the other direction, that all that, those sulfur remnants around the Dead Sea are because this is something that actually happened. He might say that. But I think the point he's making is not a bad one, in that this is a good example. Like the imagery of Sodom and Gomorrah, the fire coming down from heaven at a later point in time, becomes like a trope or an illustration of God's judgment through total destruction, right? Like God destroys things with fire. It's pretty consistent in a lot of respects. It happens a fair bit.
Except for the one time he didn't.
Yeah, with all the water.
Water.
There was that one time. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. That happened that one time. So, but never again.
Nope.
Which is not righteous. And kind of the other major paradigm was in Isaiah 66, which you mentioned. It's sort of this passage that's foretelling a future vision of the new creation. And the whole book closes with the righteous having gathered into New Jerusalem, then leaving after worshiping Yahweh. And it says they look upon the slain corpses of those who disobeyed God's commands. And it says their worm shall not die, their fire shall not be quenched.
Where's that?
This is Isaiah 66, 23 and 24. Their fire shall not be quenched, and they shall be an abhorrence to the righteous. So they'll be remembered.
Do you want to pull that up? Do you want me to pull that up?
Yeah, we'll pull it up now, and we'll talk about it a little
Okay.
bit more after we look at at some of the stuff about
I want
the
to I'm
valley
so glad
of Gehenna.
it's in
Start at verse 1. Oh, no, not verse 1, sorry. Where did I say to start?
verse
I've
18.
got 18. Yeah.
Okay, but I do want
This is the passage he's talking about, and this is how the book of Isaiah ends. Like, this is the last part of the book of
and I do
Isaiah.
want to start at verse 17.
All right.
Because this is saying, hey, with fire we contend with the sword, against all flesh many shall be God slain. And then it goes on to clarify who that is exactly.
Yeah.
Those who sanctify and purify themselves to go into the groves, maybe imitating one in the center or following after one, eating the flesh of swine, the reptile and the mouse, shall one and all come to an end, declares Adonai. And then it picks up with where you wanted to start. And the reason I started at that verse is there were some fundamentalist Christians who were trying to, let's say, argue with me about, certain practices. And I said, hey, do you think that all the prophecies in the Hebrew Bible have come true? And they were like, well, no, of course not. I said, okay, can I read you one? And then you tell me if this come true. And so I read the passage here where it's like God comes down in a fiery chariot and is slaying all his enemies. And they were like, well, no, of course that hasn't happened yet. I was like, okay. So when this very passage that hasn't happened yet tells you that people who eat swine's flesh, reptiles, mouses, and all that other like good stuff, do you think maybe you should stop and consider your diet? Because that was what they were trying to like get on me about. Like, you shouldn't be doing this. I'm like, okay, well, you don't think this has been fulfilled yet. And it's saying that in the future, people who do this are going to be slain by God themselves. So perhaps just for a moment, consider that maybe you shouldn't do that. And they didn't like that. And I don't recommend doing this because obviously that's not going to win them over to your side. But it's one of those things where it's like the lack of acknowledging that you selectively engage with text, it's going to paint you into these uncomfortable corners. Because the guy that's like quoting this saying like, oh, the worm won't extinguish, the fire won't go out, if you just rewind a few verses, it's telling you who God's going to kill. And I guarantee you every single person at that table eats one of those foods.
Yes.
But they wouldn't be like, oh, no, we shouldn't. It's like, oh,
no.
Well, that's not convenient. Interesting. Okay. Verse 18.
But he's reading this text though too, right? Through. So I mean, in some respects, yeah, you're right. Like if people read their Bibles more carefully, more fully, if they provided the same measure of weight to, all the text, then they should know better. But then by the same token, he's reading this through the Gospels, and it's either Matthew or Mark who cites this passage directly. That's what they're focused on, right? Yeah. The Gospel authors are reconstituting this text and pulling it out of its context and shifting the meaning of it, right? Which is like just not something that is surprising or scandalous in any way, because this is just how everybody read the texts.
Oh yeah,
at the time.
Proof
This is what they did,
texting
right?
is a time-honored tradition.
Time-honored tradition. So
been doing it for a long time.
But it is something we recognize happened through antiquity and continues to this day. It's not something I want to do. No, when I'm reading the text, I want to know where they came from, and then I want to know how people understood them, right? Which is where the proof texting comes in. So, all right, is this is verse 18, right?
And to the audience, let me know if the text needs to be embiggened.
For I know their deeds and purposes. The time has come to gather all the nations and tongues. They shall come and behold my glory. Importantly, and I do think it says this as we go a little later, but this is taking place. We just finished seeing, the restoration of the new temple and the city in Jerusalem. This is we're on the holy mountain of Zion at this point. This is where this is taking place. I will set a sign among them and send from them survivors to the nations, to Tarshish, Pool, and Lud, that draw the bow, to Tubal, Yavin, and the distant coasts, that have never heard my fame nor beheld my glory. They shall declare my glory among these nations, and out of all the nations, says Yahweh, they shall bring all your kindred on horses, in chariots and drays, on mules and dromedaries, to Jerusalem, my holy mountain, as an offering to God. That's uncomfortable.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Just as the sons of Israel bring an offering in a pure vessel to the house of God, and from them likewise I will take some to be Levitical priests, says Yahweh. For as the new heaven and the new earth that I will make shall endure by my will, declares Yahweh, so shall your seed and your name endure. And new moon after new moon, and Sabbath after Sabbath, all flesh shall come to worship me, said Yahweh. Then they shall go out and gaze on the corpses of those who rebelled against me. Their worms shall not die, nor their fire be quenched. They shall be a horror to all flesh. And that's the end of the book. That's how the book ends. But it is interesting, and I think, and I have some more thoughts on this I'll get into as we go. But I think
also.
All right.
It's like,
and
look,
you can tell me what you think of this. Do you want to go first? You go first.
Yeah, the Chodesh Bechodesh show. It's like, look, Shabbat, V'Shabbato. If people aren't in the writer's mind, okay, in whoever wrote this section of Isaiah, in their mind, we're still using the Hebrew calendar. We're still observing Shabbat in this, future scenario that they're writing about. So I have yet to hear any evangelical fundamentalist properly reckon with this. Like, the best that I've ever gotten in terms of a response is, well, we don't follow the law now. That's not for us. But in some future thing, something about it will be restored. And I'm just like, no. No. This idea that there's a little parenthetical where Christians get their special treatment and they can just do whatever the heck they want and go, well, we follow a Jewish person from the 1st century who would have followed, Jewish law, but that's not for us. I mean, we emulate him and everything except for that and all the other Jewish stuff. But then in some nebulous future, then some kind of law will be reestablished. And I'm like, explain that like I'm 5. And I haven't gotten any good answers out of that. They just go, well, I mean, dispensationalism. Okay, sure, bud.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no. So, and this is where I think we need to take a very sharp. I'll just read this in case anybody's not actually watching. Sorry, can you put it back up?
Yep.
Yeah, it is interesting. They're described as corpses, not immortal bodies. Yeah, so there is this developmental perspective where the enemies of God are destroyed. They're killed. There is not, at this point in time, there doesn't seem to be this sense of a conscious torment of any sort of ongoing existence after the death of these people. it's fair to say, and I think that this plays into what's being depicted here. There is these are people who were destroyed by fire. With the worms that shall not die, nor the fire that has quenched, a horror to all flesh, looks like the results of a destruction by fire. I want to scroll back up a little bit there to this being an offering as well, to Yahweh. Because I think this is interesting too, as we think a little bit more on this particular image. The images of all the people, all the worshipers of Yahweh inside the city of Jerusalem, gathered at his temple from all the nations around the earth, who are going outside of the city or to the edge of the city to gaze on all the corpses of the dead people outside the city. If you've been to Jerusalem, it's a city that's perched up on in the old city in particular is perched up on a hilltop. The sides can be pretty sheer, pretty steep, so they're looking down into the valleys below at the dead bodies, at the corpses. So I think is this it, or is it oh yeah, this is it.
It's this one.
So
It's really early in the
is
verse. I missed
right
it.
there we go. They shall bring all your kindred and horses, chariots, drays, and mules and dromedaries to Jerusalem, my holy mountain, as an offering to Yahweh, just as the Israelites bring an offering in a pure vessel to the house of God. And
really feel like
so go ahead.
having the way that they render this, I think, is not doing a good service. Sometimes I'm okay with people switching around clauses in a sentence to help it in English, but I feel like in this case you probably shouldn't, because it says, and they will bring all of your brethren from all the nations, or out of the nations, Michal Hagoyim, a mincha. And I feel like that's an important distinction to make.
Yeah.
This is
That's a good
it's like,
point.
hey, referring to, a return from exile, or plucking out, people from among, a mixed bag of folks. I feel like that's something that this particular translation is not quite getting across well enough.
I think that's a good point. And this is not when we picture, and oftentimes when I talk about these sorts of offerings by destruction made to Yahweh, a more common word for that is the olah, the whole burnt offering, right, as opposed to the mincha. So yeah, that's a good observation, but I do want to put a bit of a pin in this, just bearing in mind the location here in the valleys outside of Jerusalem, the dead bodies, the corpses that are there, the smoke and the fire that seems to be pictured in this place, and the fact that these are sacrifices or devotions of some sort made to Yahweh. Let's watch and this is important. I don't want to jump right into this just yet, because I do want to back up a little bit and talk about where I think this idea came from. But the guy here, Dan, I'm pretty sure his name is. If I got his name wrong for the whole video, I'm gonna feel bad. But I'm just gonna keep calling him Dan, Dan at this point, and hope that's right.
Listen,
but
my next door neighbors, for whatever reason, were absolutely convinced that my name was Stacy. It's not. I'm not really sure how they got Stacy, but I told them yesterday.
How many times did they call you Stacy yesterday before you.
Me llamo, and then I told them my name, and they were just like, "Oh wait, your name's not Stacy. I don't know how we did that." And I'm like, "It's fine." And then they said, "That's not
Your
a
name
Spanish
doesn't
name." I'm
even
like,
sound
I know,
like
my parents are
Stacy.
weird. My name is definitely not Spanish, and my parents are weird. So yeah.
Can we just debunk this nonsense right now?
Yeah, we can. All right,
All
fine, I'll
right.
do it. All right.
Oh, not that. Yeah, that's the one. Okay. Thanks,
I knew where you were going.
Weirdo CK,
I
Evan.
did be
Thank
knowing.
you.
It's been a hell of a
Like-
week, and I can't wait to light candles with y'all nerds in the background. Shabbat shablam, friends. Yes, I will be setting a timer in about an hour or so. Okay, and Theory Vision Kept won't read super chats over $2. Debunked. Google debunked. Yep.
Thank you, Weirdo CK, Evan. So
Fake.
let's. But I think this imagery though is really important. Obviously, the gospel writers picked up on this in their descriptions of final judgment, right? So it's the last image in the book of Isaiah.
Mhm.
Let's listen to
Okay.
let's listen to
See
him.
where else.
talk
I
about
love
this a
how
little bit more.
Gavin's had this look on his face the whole time, like, I don't know. And it's been
don't know
so
about this.
skeptical, and he's trying to behave, but I can tell he's just like, no.
With contempt. And that's sort of the origin then of Jesus' language in quoting Mark 9, unquenchable fire, undying worms.
Does your view of the punishment in hell fit the crimes of a sinful person? More specifically,
Good question.
if a
Very good
15-year-old
question.
boy or girl commits rebellion against their parents and rebellion against God, lying, cheating, stealing, load her up with all of the sins in the world, does that comport with your view of God's punishment for that person, an eternity of conscious punishment, or an execution that separates her from God and life and everything forever and ever?
One thing that began.
That is an amazing question, and I am actually impressed that he is asking it.
Hey, not bad, eh? Way to go, Kirk Cameron.
And I'm like, hey, what 15-year-old girl do you know in your life that's making you ask this question?
Maybe he has maybe the kid. Your
Is it a
kids are gonna make
niece?
you.
Is it a daughter, grandparent? Like what?
Yeah. And I'll tell you, this is something. This was a big one for me, right?
Yeah.
The severity of punishment relative to the crimes. And I just in my estimation, I'm like, this just doesn't track in any concept that I've ever developed about justice. And especially after coming to recognize how important that word is in both testaments, in the Hebrew Bible as well as in the New Testament. Like, how does this even follow? And there's other problems with this too, because within our own justice systems, we have these have developed with different classifications of infraction based on their severity, right? Like a misdemeanor is different from like a
felony.
like a crime, a felony. And infractions are different from misdemeanors. Like it's civil crime, like civil infractions are different from criminal. Like it just we've got all these ways of sorting this out as fallible humans. How is it then that that there is just this seemingly sweeping judgment for all of it? But then I'm not even sure that's consistent, because there are places within the New Testament where I think there's some confusion between whether or not every sin is an equal infraction against God, or if some sins are greater than others. I mean, both are in there.
didn't Jesus talk about like the smallest of laws, like, oh, preserving a bird's nest for its parent? So you would think maybe if there's a greatest commandment and there are like commandments that are just the least low lift, whatever, then you would think maybe that punishments would kind of scale accordingly. On top of the fact that a mortal living a whisper of life compared to eternity gets an eternal punishment for something committed in just like a blink.
Yeah.
Like, really?
Right.
That is wildly disproportionate.
Yeah. So it's yes, this was a big problem for me for a long time as I was coming out of my evangelical tradition. So let's listen to hear how they handle it.
Okay.
To trouble me when I was wrestling with this subject theologically is I'd never considered that the traditional view says that God is sustaining evil forever.
Yeah.
So there is never a point where evil comes to an end or where there is a final victory where Christ is all in terms of being reconciled, right? And our reconciliation concept isn't just I'm over you in judgment. It seems to be more that all that is left in creation is reconciled to Christ. And that's curious. And so those sort of apokatastasis passages, things like in 1 Corinthians or in Ephesians where he'll become all in all in Colossians. But the other element of it is, and this is maybe more troubling for me, was this idea that it means that God's justice is never satisfied eternally. And so if
there's always punishment left to mete out.
There is always punishment left to mete out. And so God's justice will never ultimately be satisfied in the suffering of the lost. And so those concepts of the eternal upholding of evil, because even if you want to say it's the removal of his presence, God's still omnipresent, but he still has to sustain the evil in creation and enable them to sin forever. So he's effectively upholding an opportunity for sin to continue forever. And I've just always found that seemingly very difficult to reconcile with these other passages once I became kind of consciously aware of that. And I think maybe the value of the conditional immortality perspective, it says that in Romans 1:32, it talks about how even people who are wicked and who are turned against God and have turned inwards in sin, they suppress the truth in unrighteousness, yet they are aware that the just penalty for their deeds is death. And so what seems intuitively right, even to a person who is an enemy of God, is that once my deeds are exposed, what is the right penalty? Death. And this is the removal of evil then from creation. Hell is God's means of bringing evil to...
Let's go to Revelation.
Okay. Let's stop there.
I love
before we go on to Revelation.
So much, because the idea that on the one hand, Jesus paid for your sins for all time, and it's a permanent offering in the heavenly temple that you don't need to keep doing it every year and offering like blood on the altar. His blood is perfect, so it lasts forever. And also, God can never be satisfied because he's torturing people for eternity.
Yeah.
That is an incredible thing to call out.
It is. And I think it's extremely apt for why this notion of eternal conscious torment is almost certainly wrong. At least in the way I think there's some issues that even Christians who don't hold to that idea need to sort through. But like that sounds right to my ear. So let's take a break from that for a minute. They're going to go into the rest of this video is them talking about some texts in the book of Revelation, which are especially problematic and troubling. So before we go there, let's talk about hell from a lexical perspective in the New Testament. And I started doing some of this last week. We talked about how I introduced this today already, how this concept of Sheol from the Old Testament, from the Hebrew Bible, is translated in the Septuagint in Greek into this term, Hades. We see this term used quite a lot throughout the so-called apocryphal and pseudepigraphical literature. Just to give you a couple of examples here from Ben Sira, it's used. I'll just list a few here. Esther 13:7, Wisdom of Solomon 1 verse 12 to 15, and chapter 2 verse 1, 16 verse 13. Ben Sira 9 verse 12, 14 verse 16, 17 verse 27, and a few other texts. I'll read those in a minute. Tobit 3:10, 2 Maccabees 6:23, and on and on and on. Like it is a prevalent idea, and it's because, and these are all texts, by the way, well, except for Ben Sira and Tobit, but most of these other texts are almost certainly all written in Greek. So this is at this point a developing Jewish Hellenistic idea. This equation of Hades with Sheol was a natural one for them. So just looking at a couple of these, this is Ben Sira. I'm just reading this out of my Cambridge Apocrypha. Ben Sira 21 verse 10 says, and I'll just back up a little bit here. Whoever builds his house with other people's money is like one who gathers stones for his burial mound. An assembly of the wicked is like a bundle of tow, and their end is a blazing fire. The way of sinners is paved with smooth stones, but at its end is the pit of Hades. Right? Sheol. If you go to chapter 28, oh, wait, I thought I had that one. Okay, there we go. If we go to chapter 28, verse 21, it reads like this. Where are we here? Oh, no, I'm not going to. No, 41 verse 4 was the next one. Chapter 41 verse 4. I'm going to start at the top of the chapter. Verse 1, O death, how bitter is the thought of you to the one at peace among possessions, who has nothing to worry about and is prosperous in everything and still is vigorous enough to enjoy food. So, death is an uncomfortable thought, especially for a wealthy man. O death, how welcome is your sentence to one who is needy and failing in strength, worn down by age and anxious about everything, to one who is contrary and has lost all patience. Do not fear death's decree for you. Remember those who went before you and those who will come after. This is the Lord's decree for all flesh. Why should you reject the will of the Most High? Whether life lasts 10 years or 100 or 1,000, there are no questions asked in Hades. So no matter who you are, everyone's going to the same place. They're all going to Hades.
Isn't one of the proverbs, the dead know nothing?
Yeah.
So how are you eternally conscious if the dead know nothing? Are you just dead for a while and then God brings you back to suffer forever?
Good question. I mean, I think within the conceptualization of this among the writers of the Hebrew Bible and then the later Hellenistic Jews, this was the sense of there being like existence, but without any, as I mentioned in the beginning, like no memory. There's no contemplation. It's just like a blank existence. Sometimes it's presented like sleep. But there's also not a lot of consistency in this or development in this either, right? So I'll just read one more here from Ben Sira. Chapter 48. This is part of his long poem celebrating the heroes of the faith, the great ancestors of the Hebrew Bible. And this is where he's talking about Elijah. He says, Elijah arose a prophet like fire, and his word burned like a torch. He brought a famine upon them, and by his zeal he made them few in number. By the word of the Lord he shut up the heavens, and also 3 times brought down fire. How glorious you were, Elijah, in your wondrous deeds. Whose glory is equal to yours? You raised up a corpse from death and from Hades by the word of the Most High. So here I find it kind of interesting too that Elijah is this prophet who has this strong association with calling down fire from heaven, but is also the prophet who raised a dead person to life, literally brought them back from out of Hades, from out of the grave. Baruch chapter 3, starting in verse 15. Who has found her place? and who has entered, this is speaking of wisdom, who has entered her storehouses? Where are the rulers of the nations and those who lorded it over the animals on earth? Those who made sport of the birds of the air and who hoarded up silver and gold in which people trust, and there is no end to their getting. Those who schemed to get silver and were anxious, but there is no trace of their works. They have vanished and gone down to Hades, and others have arisen in their place. So it's just within this literature that comes to us all from the Hellenistic period, there is still this sense that that this is a place that everyone goes when they die, and then this is echoed in the New Testament. Did you have something to say? Oh, okay.
Go for it.
Cool.
I mean, you're still
All right.
still
So
cooking.
I'm going to, you know what? I had planned to use Cross Bible again today, but it seems to be down. So I'm pulling my New Testament references today out of that one, out of accordance. My my computer software.
I loved
for the
how the
for the
creator
Bible.
of Cross Bible, upon being told that, hey, you named it Christian Cross, Cross Bible, that, might disincentivize people who aren't Christians, like Jews, from using your program. And he
Yeah.
was like, yeah, well, the money's where the Christians are, and that's the bulk of the audience. I'm like, oh, cool.
Well, I mean, he's also a
straight.
Christian, so
Yeah, but it's like, if you want to promote your stuff as like a robust study tool, one would think that you would want the broadest possible audience, but perhaps my business acumen is lacking.
I don't know. To me, I don't think it's the sort of thing that should be enough to turn people off. I'll just say that. But what do I know?
Don't care if it's Christian branded. I'm like, why would I use this?
Yeah.
So,
well,
whatever.
It's music because it's good and it's functional. But and it is. So let's in starting in on the New Testament, let's look first at Matthew chapter 11, verse 23. This is, first of all, there's a couple of different terms that we need to look at when discussing this in the New Testament. And the first of these is Hades. As we've been exploring, this is the concept of Sheol, transplanted from the ancient Israelite religion into this Hellenistic Jewish world and translated as Hades. This is the place of the dead. It's named after the god of death. In the New Testament, and some of these are points that I made last week, but they bear repeating. Very interestingly, the word Hades is never used in the Gospel of Mark, which is our oldest gospel. It is also never used by the writer of the Gospel of John, and it's never used by Paul. Actually, Paul never talks about a place where anybody goes, where the wicked go when they die. Paul just talks about destruction. So it is used by Matthew and Luke, and it appears in the book of Revelation as well. This first text in Matthew 11 verses 20 through 23. I'll just read this for you. This is from the NRSV, and look at how pretty my my Greek font is. I quite like the accordance fonts. They're still my favorites. So then he began to reproach the cities in which most of his deeds of power had been done, because they did not repent. Woe to you, Chorazin! Woe to you, Bethsaida! For if the deeds of power done in you had been done in Tyre and Sidon, they would have repented long ago in sackcloth and ashes. But I tell you, on the day of judgment, it will be more tolerable for Tyre and Sidon than for you. And you, Capernaum, will you be exalted to heaven? No, you will be brought down to Hades. For if the deeds of power had been done in you that had been done in Sodom, it would have remained until this day. But I tell you that on the day of judgment, it will be more tolerable for the land of Sodom than for you. It's interesting to me, and I want you to think about this, because one of the things that the evangelical guys in this roundtable discussion want to compartmentalize, what they want to make distinctions in, is the judgment in the last days. And in their estimation, that's and they all agree about this, that hell is the fate of everyone in the last days. And that's different from what happens to the unregenerate, the unrepentant prior to then. And so they make this distinction, right? Here in Matthew, the way that he's talking about Hades sounds like total destruction. He ties it to judgment. He talks about what's going to be happening in the where does he say it here? Will it remain until this day that I tell you that on the day of judgment it will be more tolerable for the land of Sodom than for you. So that's the first text which references Hades. That is pretty interesting and important. The other one that a lot of people fix on is the parable in Luke chapter 16. Luke 16. So this is the parable of the wealthy man and Lazarus. I think it's Luke 16.
Oh, right. I remember
that's
this,
Luke
where
1.
he's like, "Oh, we're on opposite sides of a great divide, and I'm miserable. You know, hey,
Yeah.
Father Abraham, can't you give me a little drink of water?" It's like totally using a metaphor and a teaching tool. It's not saying this is actually how it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Or this is actually how it is.
Right. So we know this story. There's a rich man,
Yeah.
and there was a poor beggar named Lazarus, and
Mhm.
and they both died, right? And the poor man died and was carried away by the angels to be with Abraham. The rich man also died and was buried. Then it says in Hades, where he was being tortured. This is the word
Dun, dun,
commonly used
dun.
for like severe painful physical punishments issued to slaves in particular. In like I'm talking about in other Greek literature. It can be used for like psychological torment as well. But he's in Hades where he's being tortured, and he looks up and saw Abraham far away with Lazarus by his side. He called out, "Father Abraham, have mercy on me and send Lazarus to dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am in agony in these flames." But Abraham said, "Child, remember that during your lifetime you received good things, and Lazarus in like manner evil things, but now he is comforted here and you are in agony. Besides all this, between you and us is a great chasm that has been fixed, so that those who might want to pass from here to you cannot do so, and no one can cross from there to us." So here we have a picture of Hades as the place to which the this rich man goes upon his death. And it's described as a place of torture. I think it's physical torment based on his request to Abraham, send Lazarus to dip his finger in the water and cool my tongue. He's in agony in the flames. That's the other interesting thing about this picture in Matthew is Hades is now also being associated with this idea of fire.
Hmm.
And what was I gonna? So yeah, it's and it's an actual place. But again, importantly, this is a parable, right? So these are allegories. These are stories with lessons told by Jesus to illustrate something of of importance, of significance. The point of the story here, I think this comes out in what Abraham says in response to the rich man. During your lifetime, you received good things, and Lazarus in like manner evil things. But now he is comforted here, and you are in agony. This sounds very much actually like the text from Ben Sira that I read about how men who are wealthy when they die, you know, are they uh they're frustrated. They don't look forward to their death because life is good. The poor man, when he dies, rather looks forward to it because his life is almost like there is this idea of Hades has built within it almost like a leveling, as a resetting of the balances. Like this is justice, where whatever kind of a life that you were blessed to live in this world is going to be balanced out in the next.
Two things.
Yeah.
Number one, notice how it says Lazarus, who would have been Eleazar, it says that he died and was carried away by angels, but the rich man died and was buried.
Buried.
They have two completely different, things. That's something to chew on later. But I want to note that the way it compares them, the rich man, he's so rich, he's got all the best clothes, he's eating high on the hog, as they say. And right outside his gate, poor Lazarus with sores that are being licked by the dogs. And he was like, if only I could eat the crumbs off this man's table.
Right? Yeah.
He was like, just the crumbs of this guy's table. So obviously that's flipped on its head with, if you could just get him to dip his finger in water, I'll just take the scrap of the water off his finger. But what struck me today, just now, is it seems like the rich man would have been aware of Lazarus because dude's right outside his gate, but he didn't take care of him. He didn't feed him, didn't do anything to improve his station or even help him or feed him or do nothing. So this guy's just beneath him, I guess, not worth his attention. And he doesn't ask Abraham to give him water. He wants Lazarus to do it. This man who you just thought was completely beneath you, possibly not even existing in your eyes, and you want him to serve you in the afterlife just to give you some relief? How entitled and just ridiculously arrogant does this guy have to be, right?
There you go. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
No, that's exactly what this whole this parable's about, right? It's a message of dire warning, to the people in power and the people of means, saying, look out for those less fortunate than you.
Scroll down,
and it's a word of encouragement too. To those
just a smidge
who are suffering.
I was gonna say this is an interesting parallel to the passage you just read from, was it Matthew? Because it invokes Sodom. It says like your fate is gonna be even worse than theirs.
Yeah.
And if you read the prophets, Jeremiah, I think is it, that talks about Sodom and or Ezekiel, that what their actual sin was is they just would not help the poor. They refused.
Yes,
They says they
that's
wouldn't
right.
open their hand to the poor. They were just hoarding all these resources, and then here you have the rich man doing the same thing.
That's right. Wow, that's a good point. Nice. I like it. So Hades,
Ezekiel. Thank you.
in these, yes, it was Ezekiel. In these New Testament writers, in Matthew and in Luke, is this place that is developed somewhat maybe from the Hellenistic Jewish view, although I would say that this is right in line, right, with the text that we read from Ben Sira about this leveling of the balances for the people, between the people who have suffered and the people who have enjoyed plenty in this life. It's really interesting what happens with this term when you get to the book of Revelation, though. I think I mentioned this last time, but we'll actually look at these texts here in Revelation. It appears in Revelation chapter 1, verse 18, and chapter 6, verse 8. And we're going to look at chapter 20, verses 13 to 14. And there's a consistency here. Revelation 20:13. This is talking about, I'll just back up to 11. I saw a great white throne and one who sat on it. The earth and the heaven fled from his presence, and no place was found for them. There's a lot of personified imagery within the book of Revelation, as is typical of a lot of apocalyptic literature.
Mm.
And I saw the dead, great and small, standing before the throne, and the books were opened. Also another book was opened, the book of life. And the dead were judged according to their works, as recorded in the books. And the sea gave up the dead that were in it. Death and Hades gave up the dead that were in them, and all were judged according to what they had done. Then death and Hades were thrown into the lake of fire. This is the second death, the lake of fire. And anyone whose name was not found written in the book of life was thrown into the lake of fire. So here, Hades is not a place. Hades is the god of death, once again, along with the Canaanite Hebrew god of death, Mot, or death. They're both figures in this great apocalyptic drama, this symbolic drama that takes place in the last days, and they too are cast into the lake of fire, which is now a new term, a new idea that's being presented here. And I think that in order to understand what's going on in the book of Revelation, it's important now to rewind and introduce this other concept that appears in the New Testament, and that is the fate of those who end up going to Gehenna. What is this?
I really like
Lawson
that.
of Spring.
There's a democratization of the afterlife that's happening in the broader cultural milieu. Earlier in the paradisal afterlife was reserved only for greats like kings.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, all right. So the other term that appears in the New Testament in the Gospels, to describe this place that is commonly understood as hell, is Gehenna. So this is a term that's also never used by Paul. It never appears in the book of Revelation. It is used, very importantly, by Mark in Mark chapter 9, verses 43 to 47. We're going to look at that. And it's also used by Matthew. We'll look at the Mark passage first. Mark 9:43. If your hand, so back this up a little bit. If any of you put a stumbling block before the little ones, these little ones who believe in me, it would be better for you if a great millstone were hung around your neck and you were thrown into the sea. If your hand causes you to stumble, cut it off. It is better for you to enter life maimed than to have two hands, or I think to keep your two hands and go to Gehenna, to the unquenchable fire. And if your foot causes you to stumble, cut it off. It is better for you to enter life lame than to keep your 2 feet and be thrown into Gehenna. And if your eye causes you to stumble, tear it out. It is better for you to enter into the kingdom of God with one eye than to have 2 eyes and be thrown into Gehenna, where the worm never dies and the fire is not quenched. Recalling that same imagery that we saw in Isaiah chapter 66, right? So you know what Gehenna is, right, Vish? Uh-oh, she's gone. My foil is gone. Oh,
The
no.
Valley of
It's like-
Hinnom.
Yes, thank you. What is the Valley of Ben Hinnom? Or the Valley of Hinnom? I'm being very, very rude by disrupting her. So this is a transliteration of this Hebrew term. We talked a little bit about this last week, and the valley Gehenna is literally the Valley of Hinnom in the Old Testament. In the Hebrew Bible, it is the B'nai Hinnom, the Valley of the Sons of Hinnom. It is an actual place located on the, where's my notes? There we go. Located on the northern side of the city of Jerusalem. It's the northern boundary between Judah and Benjamin. We see that in texts like in Joshua chapter 15, verse 8, and chapter 18, verse 16. But it is notorious within the Hebrew Bible, the Valley of Hinnom, as the place where people in the 8th, 7th, and maybe 6th centuries offered up child sacrifices. It has been commonly understood as a place where child sacrifices were offered to this god Molech, although there are more and more scholars who are convinced that there was no god Molech, and that this is just a technical term that's used for a type of offering that in some instances involved burning infants and burning children in fire. So do you have the first text there in Jeremiah 7:31? If we could look at that first of all.
I do.
Yay. So this is Jeremiah, or actually this is more appropriately probably a later editor who's inserted this complaint into the text of the book of Jeremiah. But this seems to be based on an historical reality. We read about this in 2 Kings chapter 23, where Manasseh and Ahaz, I believe, were both said to have offered their children in fire in the Valley of Hinnom. Jeremiah says here they have built the shrines of Tophet. That's what these structures where they offered these sacrifices were called, in the Valley of Ben Hinnom, to burn their sons and daughters in fire, which I never commended, which never came to my mind. Assuredly, a time is coming, declares Yahweh, when this people shall no longer speak of Tophet in the Valley of Ben Hinnom, but of the Valley of Slaughter.
Sorry.
What happened? That's okay.
Freaking browser went nuts for a second. Okay.
They shall no longer speak of Tophet in the valley of Ben Hinnom, but of the valley of slaughter. And they shall bury in Tophet until there is no room left. The carcasses of this people shall be food for the birds of the sky and the beasts for the earth, with none to frighten them. So it's the Gehenna right away is a place that is a place of fire, where children are sacrificed in rituals, not to the god Molech, but probably to various gods, including Yahweh. And it's interesting because in this passage, and this is written, remember, this is an insertion. This isn't Jeremiah himself. This is an insertion, and this is written after the siege and destruction of the city of Jerusalem, after the exile at some point. I think this notation here, that this place will be called the Valley of Slaughter, that there will be corpses of people that will pile up, and that they'll be food for the birds of the sky. I think this is an important historical point. It's been suggested wrongly by scholars in the past and by apologists that Gehenna at the time of Jesus was a notorious place where the people from the city just tossed their refuse. It was like a big garbage dump, and that they just burned all their garbage in this place.
Yeah,
that's not what this place is, right?
I want to know where.
But I do think I think what Jeremiah is talking about here, and this develops into this idea, right, that's reflected then in the Gospel of Mark, and then is repeated in Matthew as well, about Gehenna. It's this place outside the city. I think the reason why Jeremiah calls it the Valley of Slaughter, why the editor calls it the Valley of Slaughter, is probably because this is the place, for those who are unfamiliar with the history behind this. In 597 BCE, Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, at the time he was the crown prince of Babylon, laid siege to Jerusalem, entered the city and exiled a bunch of the people and installed a puppet ruler there. Then another 10 years later, his puppet ruler, Zedekiah, rebelled, and he came back, laid siege to the city again. We're told that the siege itself lasted 8 months, which is pretty horrible. And some of the texts which recall life during the siege reflect on this. There's prophets who talk about women boiling their own children to eat them. You know, the people are starving. After 8 months, the city falls. Many people are killed. But in the course of that time, I think what's happening here in this text, and what's being recalled in Isaiah chapter 66 as well, is that they were probably tossing the dead bodies outside of the city into these valleys that surround it. The Valley of Hinnom, where once these sacrifices, these rituals of child sacrifice took place, have now become these places where corpses are piled up and burned. And this is where this imagery comes from, right? If we go back and we think about Isaiah chapter 66, another text that was written after the exile, after the destruction of the city of Jerusalem, I think that's what he's getting at too. The bodies, the corpses of everyone are like all the enemies of God are tossed outside of the city, into the valleys
outside the city
that surround them. So,
and I mean, it's like, that is a practical solution. Tossing bodies outside. It's like, hey, you know what happens when people just sit around dead bodies for long enough? You want people to get sick? Do you want maggots and vermin to infest your place? Because that's how you get that.
Yeah, no.
So
On this note, let's look at a couple of other texts. Can you pull up Isaiah 30 verses 33? So now I want to backtrack a little bit to a time, 8th century, when this place was not, or this idea of the Tophet, even though this doesn't actually mention the valley of the sons of Hinnom, it has built within it this same idea of this same place where the Tophet, the Tophets were erected for sacrifice. This is the JPS translation, which is almost certainly, this is a very difficult text. It's a corrupt text, but this is the perspective from the 8th century, a couple centuries before this text from Jeremiah was written. The Tophet has long been ready for him. This is speaking of the judgment of Assyria. This is God calling down the judgment on the nation of Assyria, and says that the Tophet, the place of sacrifice, of burning, has long been ready for him, for Assyria.
ooh,
He is destined for, it says here, Lemelech. This is
I
a
think that's
repointing.
probably Lamolech.
This
Yeah.
is Molech. Yeah, this is,
Yeah.
he is destined for Molech,
Being
for
offered up
one
in a
of
fire.
these rituals.
Mhm.
Look what it goes on to say. His fire pit has been made both wide and deep, like a valley, with plenty of fire and firewood, and with Yahweh's breath burning in it, like a stream of sulfur.
Ooh.
So you've got, even very, very early on, you've got kind of this apocalyptic imagery of judgment associated with these ritual places of child sacrifice, of human sacrifice, and of death and destruction, foisted on the enemies of Yahweh. I want to read a little bit from Heath
also-
Durrell.
Before you do that really quick, I
Yeah.
feel like just for the sake of, covering our bases here, that you should remind any future viewers and the current audience that Molech is not a god, it is a type of sacrifice.
Yes. Yes. So this is, I think that what part of the confusion is because later scribes and editors of these texts were going to great pains to ensure that there was no direct connection between this type of sacrifice called a mulk ritual, and we know of these by the same term from Punic sites around the Mediterranean, dating from as far back as I believe the 9th century, but certainly the 7th century BCE, all the way up to like the 1st century AD, 1st century CE, for a long time. The Phoenicians, the Punic people, the Aegeans were performing these rituals. There's good reason to think that the same thing was happening in Israel, in Judah, at this time.
This is an amazing read. The passage is not about punishing Assyria, but preparing a sacrifice for Yahweh to activate the deity to fight Assyria.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's
Huh.
good. That's
Yeah.
good.
I like that.
Because I mean,
Wow.
hey, if you take this in I guess context or concert with like Psalm 82, where he's deposing the other regional gods in the divine council, well, if you depose them, then they kind of work for you, or you could activate them. I mean, for whatever reason, the redactors left in the fact that a foreign king sacrificed his kid to Chemosh and won the battle because of it. So
Yeah.
perhaps, just kind of riffing on this, I think, amazing comment, is they viewed this as a system. It's like,
Yeah.
if you do this thing, do X, Y will happen. So if you
Yeah.
offer this type of sacrifice, whatever deity is relevant will be activated, like a formula, I guess. So, man, I'm saving this for later. That is
That's very interesting. Yeah,
very, very
I'm
good. I like that.
I'm keen on that too.
Yeah.
But shall we hear what Heath
Yes, thank
Durrell,
you.
who wrote
Sacrifice
who
logic
wrote the
sounds like a
book?
summoning mechanic in video games. Thank you. That's a good modern term for it. Yeah. Okay. Proceed with Heath Durrell.
All right.
Yeah.
So, okay. So here I'll just read a little bit about the way that Heath Durrell understands this text, which he sets in the 8th century. The reconstruction of the history of the Lamolk sacrifices butts up against a few apparent difficulties, he says. Those who trace the Lamolk rites to a much earlier period have typically brought forward 2 relevant pieces of evidence. The first is this text in Isaiah chapter 30, verse 33, which many have argued is evidence of the antiquity of the Tophet in the Ben Hinnom Valley outside Jerusalem and of the Lamolk offerings that were offered there. The verse serves as a conclusion of an oracle against Ashur, either the deity, the nation, or both. In this oracle, Yahweh declares that he, or more properly, his name, will come crashing in like a torrent against Ashur, breaking the yoke of the Assyrian Empire. Yahweh's approach is marked by fire, storm, flood, and hail. The oracle works up to a climax, declaring that Ashur will be utterly destroyed, like the victim of a Lamolk sacrifice. The fact that the oracle is directed against Assyria has rightly led many to conclude that the most obvious date of the composition for the oracle is during the time when Assyria actually was an imminent threat, probably during the campaign of Sennacherib. That would be in the 720s BCE. The Masoretic text of 30 verse 33 is unfortunately somewhat garbled, especially in the pointing. Nonetheless, Mosca has convincingly reconstructed it as follows. And here's his reading of the text. For his Tophet has been arranged from etmol, probably from the beginning, but there's problems with that term as well. Even he, that is Ashur, is arranged as a Molk sacrifice. He, perhaps Yahweh, has widened and deepened its pyre, fire and wood in abundance. The breath of Yahweh, like a river of brimstone, is burning in it. Thus, the oracle depicts Ashur as the victim of a Lamolk sacrifice, who will soon be consumed by a blazing fire. And on its basis, Mosca draws 5 points, 5 important conclusions concerning the Lamolk rite, which may be outlined as follows. First, this expression, passing children through the fire, which is the common expression, one of the common expressions for describing child sacrifice in the Hebrew Bible, and is consistently associated with the Molk offerings in the Valley of Ben Hinnom. Passing children into the fire involves their death, not merely their dedication. For example, the passage obviously implies Ashur's destruction, not dedication. Second, the ritual accords well with what we can discern concerning the Carthaginian rites with the same name. See especially the description of Diodorus, who also has the rite take place in a pit filled with fire. Also compare the timbrels and lyres in Isaiah 30, verse 32, to Plutarch's claim that the Carthaginian rite was accompanied by flutes and drums. Finally, Isaiah 30, 27 sets the rite at night, as does the stele at Ingaios, that refers to the sacrifice as a sacrum magnum nocturnum. Third, biblical mem lamed kaf is a sacrificial term, not the name of a deity. For example, in being arranged as a molk. Ashur is presented as the victim of a sacrifice, not its recipient. Fourth, the Lamolk rite is presented as a part of the official Yahwistic cultus, since it is unlikely that Yahweh would be presented as presiding over or even initiating a non-Yahwistic sacrifice. And finally, Isaiah does not appear to have objected to the rite. There is no hint of condemnation of the rite by which Yahweh intends to destroy Ashur, which I think is an exceptionally interesting point, in that this is a ritual that's commonly associated with child sacrifice. We see this appearing as a consistent pattern in these texts from the 8th century BC into the late 7th century, early 6th century BCE. In the early stages of this, Isaiah doesn't say anything about them, except for this text, which seems to feature Yahweh performing this rite of his victim, Ashur.
Oh my god.
So it's
Sorry to break up the seriousness with a shit post, but my milk shake brings all the gods to the yard.
All the gods. Bringing all the gods to the yard. That's awesome. Thank you. I've learned it's not a good idea to play that music video on my streams.
Yeah,
We've
you
got
probably
a
shouldn't.
got a super chat. Do we have a couple?
Oh yeah.
No, we've got one.
No, yeah, it's just the one.
Thanks, Simone.
For 5
New Zealand money.
Aotearoa
New Zealand.
dollars.
Oh, Aotearoa.
Yeah.
Nice.
Aotearoa. Do you know any work comparing the Malk rite to the harem? As harem in some pre-Hebrew texts, like Akkadian especially, appear similar to the Malk.
Yeah.
I'd love to know more.
I know, and I don't. and this is something, I mean, I've talked about this a little bit too, right? About my conception of how harem offerings were imagined by the biblical writers, and how comparable that is to like other rituals of human sacrifice. It's a great question, Simone. You're the one who's doing the deep dive on harem.
Yeah.
So maybe you're getting to this before I ever do. I'm very keen to find out what you discover. So but this very much, I think, is all lingering in the background of this idea that develops into the New Testament concerning hell, concerning Gehenna, as like a final judgment. We're going to bring you back. This is first Isaiah, right? So this is Isaiah ben Amoz, the prophet, writing in the 8th century. Compare and contrast. You want to bring that one back up if you can. Isaiah 66, verse 24. I think is it 24? Because I think Isaiah 66:18. Yeah. Go down to 23. Yeah. Start at 23. So they're celebrating. This is the people are in the city of Jerusalem from all the nations, celebrating new moon after new moon and Sabbath after Sabbath. All flesh shall come to worship me, said Yahweh. They shall go out and gaze in the valleys outside the city on the corpses of those who rebelled against me. Their worm shall not die, nor their fire be quenched. They shall be a horror to all flesh. So by the end of the exile, like by the end of the exile, in this post-exilic period, there is developing this association between these places of ritual where fires burned and children were sacrificed, which then seem to have become the places outside of the city of Jerusalem, where all the corpses were tossed in this horrible siege, in this horrible confrontation with the Babylonians. into that. You can start to hear, you can start to see in a text like this expectation that this is associated now with this concept of final judgment that you now get in the New Testament, right? Mark chapter 9. It would be better for you if a great millstone, verse 43. It's better for you if you enter life maimed than to have two hounds and go to Gehenna, to the unquenchable fire, to the valley outside the city, to the fire that doesn't quench, where all the dead bodies are stacked up and burning. It is better for you to enter life lame than to have 2 feet and be thrown into Gehenna. It is better for you to enter the kingdom of God with 1 eye than to have 2 eyes and be thrown into Gehenna, where their worm never dies and the fire is never quenched. So this is an idea that we also see developing before the New Testament in some of the Hellenistic Jewish literature. Just pulling my notes up here again.
That's another question that came up earlier in a different conversation I was having with someone while we were studying, is a lot of the time you don't necessarily get a good picture because you're not asking the right questions.
Yeah.
And one of the questions that I've been asking when I read some of these texts is, what was this a response to? And in Isaiah, it's pretty clearly a response to, Babylon doing their stuff. You have other passages that are talking about like the Akkadians and the Assyrians.
Mhm.
So this is a response to empire and occupation
Yeah.
and being subjugated and sieged and all this stuff. And what happens in the New Testament? They're not under those empires, they're under Rome.
The Roman. Yeah. Yeah.
So this feels
exactly.
like, oh, this is a pretty parallel response to that empire, just as these were responses. Because it's like, hey, we don't have the power to beat an empire. We're just a small nation. They
right?
have this huge power. So you know what? They'll get theirs. God will do it. That's
Yeah.
the idea here, right?
Exactly.
So.
I think that's exactly right. Before I get into what's taking place in First Enoch, do you want to pull up Joel 3 verses 9?
Okay, but you need to use the other numbering because
Oh, it's 4.
yeah. What's the other numbering system? Because this one only goes to verse 5. So 6,
Yeah.
7, 8, 9. So that'd be 4. What is this you're doing to me, Tyr and Sidon?
So, yeah, I think that's it. Let me just double check.
Okay.
It's better on this one, isn't it? It's probably better on this one. Let's see.
Okay.
Joel 3. What did I say? 3.
3, 9? I don't know.
3, 9. Okay. Yeah.
3, 9 through 16. So I'm like.
So yeah, that is. Let's see. Is that 3? Is that 3, 5?
Just tell me what the first phrase is.
The first phrase is
that you're looking for.
Yeah. Let me go back. Hold on. Oh, okay. Joel 3, 5.
Are we talking about like?
Oh yeah. So yeah, Joel 3, 4. I think it's go to Joel. Go to Joel. Is this right? 3, 4.
Just tell me what the opening phrase.
I know.
is.
I messed this up. Sorry. I have to figure this out.
Because there's rouse yourselves and come together, nations. Bring down your warriors. Let the nations rise up to the valley of Yehoshaphat. I'll sit in judgment. Swing the sickle. Is that where you're going? Multitudes upon multitudes in the valley of decision.
Yes, that's it.
Okay,
that's it.
So that's verse 14.
There we go. Okay.
In this numbering system.
Okay. So
yeah.
So back it up a little bit to back up to, I think let's go to verse 11. I think 10 or 11. Let's see. Yeah, okay, 11. Rouse yourself and come, all you nations come together from round about. There bring down your warriors. Yahweh, the great, the great Yahweh. Let the nations rouse
Gorateca, that's like
themselves.
your greatness.
Yeah. I think
So it's like,
those
oh,
are
well,
your
rouse.
warriors. Rouse
It's like
Yahweh, your warriors.
rouse. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Let the nations rouse themselves and march up to the valley of Jehoshaphat. For there I will sit in judgment over all the nations round about. Swing the sickle, the crop is ripe. Come and tread, for the winepress is full, the vats overflowing, for great is their wickedness, multitude upon multitude. In the valley of decision, for the day of Yahweh is at hand. In the valley of decision, the sun and moon are darkened, the stars withdraw their brightness, and Yahweh will roar from Zion and shout aloud from Jerusalem, so that heaven and earth tremble, and Yahweh will be a shelter to the covenanted people, a refuge to the children of Israel, and on and on. But I wanted to focus on that, the valley of Jehoshaphat, the valley of decision. It's this valley that everybody's going to gather together in at the point of judgment in the last days. Importantly, we don't know where the valley of Jehoshaphat is. Some have suggested that it's the Kidron Valley, because the Kidron Valley was known as a place where there was a lot of tombs cut into the hillsides where kings especially and important people buried their dead. But some have also suggested that the Valley of Jehoshaphat could be another name for the Valley of Hinnom, and I think I actually don't know if it matters so much at this point. And Joel is a notoriously difficult text to date, but I don't think it matters so much, except to point out again, here is another text like Isaiah 66, like Jeremiah chapter 7 and repeated in chapter 19, like what we see in Matthew chapter 9. Here's another text which presents the valleys outside, a particular valley outside the city of Jerusalem, which will be a place of judgment for the nations in the last days. So now this brings me to the book of Enoch. And the first text I'm going to read from Enoch comes from what's called the Book of the Watchers, which is the first part of Enoch. It's the oldest part of the collection. The Book of Enoch is comprised of several individual compositions or books. This is the first one, called the Book of the Watchers, which stretches from Enoch, First Enoch chapter 1 through chapter 36. Some of this stuff potentially dates back as far as the early 3rd or maybe even the 4th century BCE. It's quite old for non-biblical literature, and not all of it, but this is an apocalyptic text, which at this point in chapter 27 is presenting a picture of what's going to happen in the last days, when there's this final confrontation between the forces of God and his enemies, and what's going to happen to the people. Chapter 27 describes this place that Enoch just calls the accursed valley. At that moment, I said, for what purpose does this blessed land, entirely filled with trees, have in the midst of this accursed valley? Then Uriel, one of the holy angels who was with me, answered me and said to me, this accursed valley is for those accursed forever. Here will gather together all those accursed one, those who speak with their mouth unbecoming words against the Lord, and utter hard words concerning his glory. there shall they be gathered together, and here shall be their judgment in the last days. There will be upon them the spectacle of the righteous judgment in the presence of the righteous forever. The merciful will bless the Lord of glory, the eternal King, all the day. In those days, in the days of the judgment of the accursed, the merciful shall bless him for the mercy which he bestowed upon them. At that moment, I blessed the Lord of glory, and I gave him praise that befits his glory. So here in this Hellenistic Jewish text, we see another repetition of some of these same ideas that are being perpetuated with regards to this idea of Gehenna. The accursed valley is the place where he's going to gather together the accursed ones and speak unbecoming war, who, they're going to be gathered together for judgment in the last days. So that's First Enoch 27. In a later text, in what appears in the Similitudes of Enoch, these are, and these texts are possibly even post-Christian. The Similitudes are very difficult to date. Importantly, there's no part of the Similitudes of Enoch that appear in the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's widely thought that these are texts that come from maybe the 1st century CE at the earliest, from like late Roman occupation, or even post 70 after the destruction of Jerusalem, and maybe even post-Christian. So I believe it was Millich dated the Similitudes to the 2nd or 3rd century CE.
Holy moly.
But yeah. So, but here's what it says in chapter 54, which kind of echoes this idea. But listen to how much this is developed, and think about this relative to what the New Testament is doing with this idea of Gehenna and hell. Then I looked and turned to another face of the earth and saw there a valley, deep and burning with fire. And they were bringing kings and potentates and were throwing them into this deep valley. And my eyes saw there their chains while they were making them into iron fetters of immense weight. And I asked the angel of peace who was going with me, saying, for whom are these imprisonment chains being prepared? And he said to me, these are being prepared for the armies of Azazel, in order that they may take them and cast them into the abyss of complete condemnation. And as the Lord of spirits has commanded it, they shall cover their jaws with rocky stones. The Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, and Phanuel themselves shall seize them on that great day of judgment and cast them into the furnace that is burning that day, so that the Lord of spirits may take vengeance on them on account of their oppressive deeds, which they performed as messengers of Satan, leading astray those who dwell on the earth. So it's different, eh? There's an obvious development from the earlier Enochic text, this valley of destruction, where all the nations are going to be gathered. The accursed valley. Now it's filled with fire and chains, and they're throwing divine beings in there along with kings and rulers for judgment in the last days.
This is anti-shade propaganda.
Anti-shade propaganda.
Shadim. Anti-Shadim
Anti-Shadim.
propaganda.
Yeah, for sure. So.
Tatus Mad for Two says, why are they difficult to date? They're Rogan fans.
Nice. Well,
Manosphere. That's why you can't date them. Blaming everything on the... Yeah.
That's brilliant. So the last thing we need to talk about is the book of Revelation. And I think as we get into this, because this is sort of, I think, the latest development in the Christian literature, and I'll bring this up and read one of these texts from Revelation before we go back to the video here. But where am I? Is that the right one? No, I think that's wrong. Let me stop that and try a better window. I need a different window. Okay. It is that one. Yes. Is that right? It should be that one. Sorry.
This is why we say
I
that
have
you're
too many
boomer
windows.
coded.
That's why. Yeah. It when I went back to it, that's the right one. But when I went back to it, it opened up into a different one. So let's look at Revelation 14. What verse is here? Revelation 14. Well, actually, sorry, no. Let's go to Revelation 19:20. And I actually have to go here. There we go. So now there's this new idea present in the book of Revelation. Remember how we looked at Hades in the book of Revelation is now personified. It's like the god of death. Gehenna is never mentioned in the book of Revelation, but now you have this new idea here. Going back up to chapter 19, verse 19, then I saw the beast and the kings of the earth with their armies gathered to make war against the rider on the horse and against his army. The rider on the horse is Jesus. And the beast was captured, and with it the false prophet who had performed in its presence the signs by which he deceived those who received the mark of the beast and those who worshipped its image. These two were thrown alive into the lake of fire that burns with sulfur. And the rest were killed by the sword of the rider on the horse, the sword that came from his mouth, and the birds were gorged on their flesh. So now, instead of a valley filled with fire, it's like a lake filled with fire. This place of what looks like eternal torment and punishment for these divine figures and enemies of God. Let's look at chapter 20, verse 7. Revelation 20, verse 7, where this is mentioned again. When 1,000 years were ended, Satan will be released from his prison, and he will come out to deceive the nations at the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, in order to gather them for battle. They are as numerous as the sands of the sea. They marched up over the breadth of the earth and surrounded the camp of the saints and the beloved city. And fire came down from heaven and consumed them. And the devil who had deceived them was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet were, and they will be tormented day and night forever and ever. And I saw the great white throne. We've read a little bit of this already, where death and Hades gave up the dead that were in them, and all were judged according to what they had done. Then death and Hades were thrown into the lake of fire. This is the second death, the lake of fire. And anyone whose name was not found written in the book of life was thrown into the lake of fire. Now, maybe let's watch a few more minutes of the video, I think, and we're running low on time here, but we'll watch a little bit more of the video where they start talking about some of the problems with the book of Revelation, and I'll finish up with some thoughts on this as well.
Who wants to pick a verse? Where do we start?
It might be better to start even before getting to any specific verses and talking and start by talking about how visions of the future, like the one recorded in Revelation, actually function. Because a lot of Christians, and probably especially in the West, they think that these visions, like the one in Revelation, are literal visions of the future, as if a camera recorded it and then the recording had been sent back in time. But Dan, do you want to talk about whether that's actually the way these kinds of visions work?
I just want to maybe lay some cards on the table and say I found Revelation was my biggest barrier to adopting conditionalism. So you've got this long treatment where you do have these two key texts in Revelation 14:9-11 and Revelation 20:10, which really do on the surface seem to, in the imagery, be depicting eternal torment. And so I completely understand why traditionalists would look and say, how are you looking at these verses and arriving at a different position? And I think part of the journey for me was really dealing with, okay, what are we looking at when it looks like the book of Revelation? It's described as a prophecy in Revelation 1:9. It's an apocalypse, this idea of the unveiling, but it's the apocalypse of Jesus Christ, which God gave to him to show his servants. But this whole nature of apocalyptic imagery, this is not the first time we see it in the Bible. And when you go back into the book of Genesis, and you've got Joseph, who's sent into Egypt, he's in jail after the incident with Potiphar's wife, and there he comes across the cupbearer and the baker, and they have dreams. And
I just want to say, before he gets too far into it, that the fact that it is very apocalyptic and full of imagery and symbols and like metaphors, I think I agree with some of the earlier Christian sects that were like, yeah, this shouldn't have made it into the canon.
Yeah, right.
Especially having, the benefit of another, 1700 years or so of damage that this has caused. This very text, it shouldn't have been included in the main canon. Yeah. I think that was
There is a case.
probably a bad
There is
call.
a good case. Bad call.
Yeah.
Joseph interprets those dreams for them. And then Pharaoh has dreams, and Joseph interprets those dreams for them. There's visions of 7 skinny cows and 7 fat cows, and the skinny cows consume the fat cows, and Pharaoh's going, what does any of this mean? And Daniel says, well, let me interpret these images for you. So there's something that's depicted, but then that has a reality that's describing, and the 7 good years of plenty and then 7 years of famine. Fast forward in the book of Daniel, and Daniel gets these series of dreams and visions from the angel Gabriel, and so many of them are beasts and of a statue that has these 4 different compositions, and they represent kingdoms. And so again, there's a depiction, there's an image, but then there's an interpretation that's given by the angel or by the agent of God in each one of these situations. And we come then to the book of Revelation, which is, everyone agrees, the most imagery-laden book. There's over 800 Old Testament references in the book of Revelation, so there's constant allusions back to the Old Testament.
800?
That seems high.
That,
but
yeah, that seems
yeah,
like a lot.
it is I mean, there is a lot. There's a lot of
I mean, it takes parts of Ezekiel and Jeremiah just almost whole scale and just plucks them right out.
Yeah.
So
Lots of Daniel, lots of Genesis,
Yeah.
lots of like it's there's it's loaded with this kind of stuff. So but that does seem high. So
yeah, I want to
but-
know where
but-
he
but
got
it's-
that number from, because it's not that long of a book.
Yeah, right.
Um,
And I think it's maybe this is probably just a very, very generous number
Yikes.
based on some pretty sketchy allusions or allusions made on some
I
pretty sketchy criteria.
think I know what's going on. So thank you, Katie Lewis, for being one of our resident experts on catechism and Catholic stuff, Catholic stuff. Says that conditionalism is a formal heresy.
Nice.
For anybody keeping track of the way that these
Nice.
guys are wrong. And I don't think Gavin's a Catholic, but I remember
No,
his
no,
buddy.
none
that
of these
they did the
guys are.
slavery stream.
Trent
But
Horn.
it's interesting.
Yeah.
Trent Horn, thank you. It's
Yeah.
interesting to see the way that sometimes people will think that they've stumbled onto a new theology because a lot of
No.
evangelicals skip over a huge chunk of history. They're like, well, there was Jesus and the prophets, and then like maybe a few councils, and then all of a sudden there was the Protestant Reformation, and
Yeah.
it's like they miss all of the discussions about these topics where it's really not new. So coming around to conditionalism or whatever they're talking about, it's like, this isn't new. They have had these discussions a lot. It's just funny to me. People feel like they have to start from scratch constantly.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
be aware of your history, man. Just be aware of
Yeah.
it. You can
Well,
just keep up with this,
if you watch the whole thing too, I think
Mhm.
what my sense is that guys like this guy here, the Dan guy and Chris Date, in their reevaluation and reconsideration of what hell is from an evangelical perspective, they talk about this as sort of a journey back into rediscovering the historic Christian doctrines of ages past, right? Like it is a recognition of, oh wow, yeah, we have really just been focused on stuff that's far too recent and not considered.
Yeah.
the history. I just don't think they go far enough. But yeah, let it run for a little bit here.
Okay.
So
Let's see if I can get this done.
But there are these really perplexing images, and it's why you get books like Four Views on the Book of Revelation, and why there are all these different interpretations of how it unfolded, because we're trying to say, okay, we're given these symbolic images, but then they depict something in reality. What is that depiction? And so, yeah, that's sort of maybe a prolegomena as we come to the Book of Revelation, just to say, okay, we're probably actually going to agree on the imagery.
Yeah.
What we will disagree about is what is that imagery designed to symbolize, and that's probably where we should
That's
start.
an important point.
Yeah.
In Revelation 14, the no rest, day or night language,
Didn't
and
read
in
that
Revelation
one.
20:10, the word torment, and then the word that's often translated as forever, unto the ages of the ages. Sounds like we agree that at that level of, we're talking about eternal torment.
Yep.
Okay, but so I'm just, for our viewers to understand, the idea is, from your perspective, that is an image that is then subsequently interpreted to be a reference to death in the sense that you understand.
I think there's maybe worth, for Revelation 20:10, that's certainly the case, because this is depicting the lake of fire, the final judgment. Conditionalists actually have disagreements about Revelation 14. Some people do not think that's descriptive of the final judgment at all, nor is it describing necessarily eternal suffering. They will say that this is the idea of a judgment that comes upon the people of the earth at that time when Jesus returns and they're slain, but that it's the smoke of their torment that rises forever, and the restlessness is not a eternal restlessness. It just means that the activity of God's judgment is ceaseless. It's not like you're experiencing his judgment, then it pauses for 6 hours for you to get a breather, and then he continues. It's the process of that judgment is carried out without any rest until it's completed. So that's one conditionalist view. Others will also see it along with Revelation 20:10 as depicting eternal torment, but that's the image. What's the interpretation? I just think that's worth tabling.
So right here, we're bumping into just a really important fault line, and so this is good to just work.
Just for a second, guys. I think what they're straining to get at, and I think it's extremely important. And I want to bring back up Luke 16, right? This is the parable of the rich man and Lazarus. Importantly, there's these very detailed graphic depictions of, torment in the afterlife as a punishment, as judgment for your sins, that appear in Luke 16, and then in particular in the book of Revelation. And importantly, Revelation is an apocalyptic text. It's an apocalypse in much the same sense that parts of the book of Enoch are an apocalypse. Parts of the book of Daniel are an apocalypse. We have other apocalypses in the Dead Sea Scrolls. These are all deeply symbolically laden texts which are illustrating truths about the world through the imagery. And this is a point that Dan and Chris Date, the conditional immortality guys, are straining to make, that you can't just take the imagery in the book of Revelation on its face. This lake of fire, you can't just take that on its face, because this is symbolic of something else that's taking place. And in the book of Luke, chapter 16, this is a parable, which is not the same thing as an apocalypse, but doing the same sorts of things through imagery, right? And I think it's an incredibly important point to make for these guys in this conversation. Like, if you're going to take this stuff seriously, then at least get it right from like a genre perspective, in recognizing that most of this stuff isn't just like descriptive of, and at that point, then there's no good reason to form your beliefs and your theology on the basis of a plain reading of the imagery. Get behind it and figure out what it's trying to convey.
I mean, isn't a lot of Jesus's, narratives apocalyptic? I mean, he's a very much in line with an apocalyptic landscape.
Yes.
So I think kind of not addressing that aspect of him in the text is probably going to get you into some trouble, because he loves parables. He loves, imagery like this. He loves using these metaphors and these teachings. And, at one point he even tells, his disciples, like, I'm specifically teaching in metaphors so that it's not
Yes.
just
Right?
straight up understandable on the face of it. So it's intentionally metaphorical and fantastical, and that's something that
Yeah.
I feel like gets lost a lot, especially, where I grew up. It gets lost. A lot
Mhm.
of the things that he's using as an example or a teaching tool, people are like, "Oh, this is exactly how it is." And I'm like, I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
Shall
Kind of
we listen to
unfortunate.
how Gavin, stumbles his way through this, and then
And I'll be honest with you, I was starting to glaze over because nothing interests me less than a bunch
then
of,
these
like, cis hetero white dude Christians discussing, like, inside baseball theology.
Yeah, it's all this is,
I was
right?
starting to, like,
Yeah. So
but hey, you know what? I can endure. I'll try.
just a little bit more.
Look through, and I'm always
and
trying
then
to pull
I'll read
back and
something.
abstract for viewers kind of where we're at and so forth. And I think, let me articulate a principle that I think we could all agree on, that where the imagistic nature of Revelation could lead us, we'd all probably want to tap the brakes if someone said, Revelation 21:3, I think that's the right verse, says there will be no more suffering.
21:4, yeah.
21:4, there's a wipe away a tear from their eye. So if someone said, well, but Revelation is a very imagistic book, so it doesn't really mean there will be no more suffering on the new earth, we would all say, yeah, there's images, and I think we all probably agree that the lake of fire is an image. Nonetheless, the specific language there still means there's going to be no suffering.
So his, I guess, position right now is that lake of fire isn't, like, actually a lake of fire, that it's just a
I guess
metaphor for,
not.
like, judgment there,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
not the position I necessarily anticipated for him to take. But hey, I'm open to being surprised.
But I think, I mean, they had a whole stupid thing earlier about whether it's actual fire or something else, or
is this
whether
what I
it's
missed
psychological
last
torment.
week?
No,
Okay.
I skipped
I
that
gotcha.
stuff too, because all that stuff
Okay.
is stupid and boring. But like, it's it's important though for Gavin. Actually, I want to say something about this in the first place, even when I was still a believer. Because what he's saying is we don't want to take away the idea that there's going to be no more suffering, right? If that's just an image, in some respects, I kind of go, well, why not? Like, I think from a theological perspective, it doesn't, like, if the picture of heaven is also much more symbolic than actual. In some ways, I think that's when I was still a believer, that kind of perspective was comforting for me too, right? In large part just because it's so difficult to imagine that anything could be interesting in an eternity of bliss. Like, at a point, it becomes,
understand because we've never experienced it, man. You just don't get it.
So,
I
play
will
a
say this:
little bit more.
if there is a future with, no suffering and, none of that stuff, then you won't have a need for mystic visions and revelations and all these textual discussions, because they won't be needing to respond to suffering and oppression and empire. So it's kind of interesting that just from a logistical point of view, the prophet that was like, no one's gonna need to teach their neighbor know the Lord, they'll all know me, and they're just gonna be chilling. And I was like, yeah, actually, if you don't suffer, you don't have to spend time telling people about stuff that's going to be in the future that's not suffering. So it's kind of interesting that they twigged onto that way back.
Yeah, it's true. So a
Yeah.
little bit more.
Yeah.
These two other entities. I think what we then need to probe is kind of the nature of how that symbol is interpreted. Because if I understand, you both are looking at it saying, verse 14, following just a bit, the interpretation of the image inclines toward a conditionalist view. in my mind, that interpretation is harmonious with the traditionalist view. The lake of fire, death and Hades being thrown into the lake of fire, that doesn't cause me trouble as a traditionalist in my reading of the text. And this, to put my heart on the table, I try to look at this issue from both sides. You guys have good arguments for your case. I can see how you're looking at different passages. For my conscience, when I stand before the Lord one day and give an account of my teaching, this is one of those passages that really gives me pause, because eternal torment seems like a very odd image to use for annihilation. And I think it's a fair game, especially when I am now going with the majority of the Christian tradition throughout space and time. I think it's a fair game for me to ask, why should I accept that John is using an image of eternal torment to describe what is not eternal torment?
I think it's fair. To be more precise, I don't think.
I also want to acknowledge that Kirk Cameron is very troubled during this conversation. I can see it on his face.
Yeah.
There is somebody, I don't know who it is, none of my business, that he knows that is specifically on his mind, I think. And
That's
listening to
interesting.
them discuss this as if it's an abstraction, it's making his feeling of being troubled worse. I think it's exacerbating it. Because people at this table aren't thinking about the human cost or the human impact of this. They're just discussing theology. It's just a topic that you discuss, whatever. And I can tell just looking at Kurt this whole time, he's upset on behalf of somebody. And this is really upsetting him. So this is not just an abstraction for him, whoever it is. And the people who aren't affected in this way, they're like, well, my theology is this. And I just, I'm going to have to err on the side of me being convinced. And they're just not thinking about anybody outside their own personal existence. That's troublesome to me. This is yet another kind of a demerit here for Gavin, who, again, ran interference for biblical slavery. And I'm like, dude, you've got yet another person who is directly being impacted by the things that you teach and believe in your theology or whatever. And you're just, whoop, it's just going right over your head. You're not even looking at it. That's not good for a leader. You really need to be attentive to these issues for people. He's a congregational leader, right? Is he like a pastor?
He has been, and I think he holds. I think he holds, and I think he does hold a position in a church in the Nashville area. But certainly is a leader among he's looked up to. He's in high demand. People read his stuff. People pay attention to him. They listen to him. And, it's interesting to me in this conversation at one point, we won't bother with it anymore. But he talks about how much he's kind of getting into that here, right? As a teacher, as somebody who's being held to a higher standard, he really doesn't want to get this wrong. And because he's worried about what standing before God and having to account for his teaching, and you're gonna land on the torturing everyone forever,
again,
right?
This is me just picking a verse, but I do want to, at least for the class, remind people of the verse where Jesus prioritizes, your actions towards people. He puts that up there pretty dang high. And I personally, just me, individually, would look at, the admonition hey, y'all shouldn't just be rushing in to become teachers because you've got a pretty high bar to clear. I would take that in concert with the whole, hey, some of y'all are going to show up on, Judgment Day, and you're going to be like, hey, we were pastors and teachers and we cast out demons and we did all this super cool spiritual stuff. And he's going to go, yeah, but when did you visit folks in prison? Did you actually feed people that were hungry? Did you put clothes on them, and no, because don't really care. Bye. I mean, get good. The thing is that in that scenario, he's like, you really have to have a heart for people. You have to give a crap about people who have needs, actual real needs, food, clothing, shelter, being like cared for while you're imprisoned, like things like that. Having someone give a damn about you, he doesn't care what your theology is in that particular scenario. So I'm like, Gavin, you really, again, this is something that I mentioned to him in the comments of like the slavery debate thing that we did, is you need to think about how people in your audience, whatever it is, whether it's on YouTube or in your building, how they're listening to you say these things. Because to you, it may just be a simple like, oh, this is just an issue and a topic, and I have thoughts and I analyzed it, and that's it. Those have real consequences. And if somebody's listening to you make excuses and run interference for an abusive system, people who are in an abusive relationship, they're going to hear that and go, you're not safe to talk to. You're not safe to be an advocate for me. You're not someone who's going to actually listen to my needs. That's probably not good for someone in a leadership spot.
It's a very good point. Yeah. So maybe, I mean, I don't know. Maybe all of you guys who are beholden to this idea of eternal torture, I don't know. Think about your goals in life and maybe reconsider. But I want to read something.
I'm not saying Kirk Cameron hasn't caused a lot of harm with his little buddy pal talking about bananas and shit, but in this particular scenario, he's got something really heavy that he's dealing with, and they are just not. They're not addressing it.
They're not landing.
I feel really, really bad for him in this situation.
Yeah. That's astute. So
it's rough.
From an historical perspective, what's really interesting about what's happening in the book of Revelation, remember I mentioned that Hades is personified, right? As the as like the god of death. The Gehenna just doesn't appear anywhere in the book of Revelation. And now you've got this recurring phrase, like a fire. But this too, this is unique among all the New Testament texts. It only appears in the book of Revelation, which I think is significant. Anytime that you've got a specific term that is specific to a particular text, that's significant. That's important. That tells you something meaningful about the theology and the development in this text. So this term, like a fire, what's the deal with this? This comes from
what's the deal
David...
with that? Sorry, I had to.
Yeah, this comes from David One's commentary, which is it's dated, but I think this is important information here. He says the phrase "lake of burning fire with sulfur" occurs in variations 6 times in Revelation. The image is problematical. Or there are no close parables in the Old Testament, in Jewish literature, in Greco-Roman literature, particularly when the place of eternal punishment is conceived as a limne, or a lake. Surprisingly, the image of a place of eternal, the image of a lake of fire occurs in ancient Egyptian texts. Several places in the Book of the Dead. He's got some bibliography here, where it is located in the underworld. Though the channel of transmission from Egypt to Revelation is unknown, it is instructive to note that another Egyptian underworld myth, the second death, which is mentioned specifically in Revelation 20, not only is associated with the lake of fire in Revelation 20:14 and 21:8, but also found closely connected with the lake of fire in the Book of the Dead. Now, in a very ancient Egyptian text. This reinforces the probability that traditional Egyptian underworld mythology has somehow contributed to John's conception of the underworld. So, yeah, apocalyptic imagery. Importantly, this is all very symbolic imagery. Maybe even more importantly, they're just riffing off of the Book of the Dead in the Book of Revelation here.
Wait.
in describing this vision of the end.
Kipp, are you telling me cultures influence each other? Nah.
And you need to know something about the cultures and the people living in them to see why they were so influenced. So we got three super chats to finish up here.
Let's knock
and then I gotta go.
Real. Okay. Lieutenant Matt the Navigator for 5. Why does this group feel like a convention of youth pastors trying to be? Oh God.
Except for Paul Copan, doesn't really strike me.
He hasn't said
as
anything in this
good
clip.
He didn't. Most of his stuff was it wasn't very interesting.
Let's see. For another 5, he adds how to generate deer in the headlights. Ask an evangelical about Hellenistic Judaism.
Yes.
Seriously.
Yes.
That's a little too real.
It's true.
Okay, Claude Simeon for 5. So Vishanti isn't a rabbi yet. Nope. How many more steps? Dapper gave the impression you were off stream to become a rabbi. Curious all the time. I did talk about this a little bit earlier in the stream. I'm in a program where the core curriculum is about 2 to 2.5 years, and then after the completion of that core, there are some different paths that you can take supplementing that, and there's a few of us in the cohort that want to kind of go down the track of being a rabbi. So once we kind of wrap this up in about another yearish, then the formal rabbi stuff is happening. So I'm taking classes a la carte in the meantime, so that I can kind of stay ahead of the curve.
Nice.
So I can't
he actually
give
did
you
just come right out and say that you were away becoming a rabbi. So, but I mean,
that is not accurate.
It's a long
It's
process, right? Like it's
take
just
a while,
it's part of it.
Usually, I think the average is around 4 to 5 years. It can go a longer, obviously, depending, but yeah, it's one of those things I can't say, oh, it's this amount of time, because I learn differently and have different areas of focus than some of the other folks in my cohort. Like some people want to do pastoral work and therapy and things like that. Some people want to be pulpit rabbis. Some people want to do teaching. So there's a whole variant there. But yeah, I'm still in the early stages. It's gonna be a while, so sit tight.
That's what I'm talking about. DH personal.
Stapper was wrong about one thing. He's wrong about everything. We can't trust anything.
You can't trust him. You can't.
Can't trust him.
Can't do it. So,
man.
Yeah.
Woo.
But speaking of the dinosaur, I gotta go because I am going to be.
That's right.
With the rest of the Kongzi crew on in 20 minutes. So, and this show will redirect
across the universe.
Yeah. Over there. So if you're interested in watching, just stay tuned. So stuff coming up. What do you got, Vish? I think it's tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow we're just gonna be back on Dapper Dinosaurs channel, debunking nonsense from young Earth creationists who don't even understand the basics of biology.
Anything? What did they understand?
Yeah, anything.
Really? Like
really,
it's just nothing.
Yeah,
sad.
It's not good.
It's just sad.
It's kind of demoralizing. Yeah, and then in my real life, I'm trying to move within the next week, which is stressful.
Yeah.
And I'm just doing little bits at a time because I have to do it largely by myself, except for my neighbors. I love my next door neighbors. They're a wonderful family. They saw me kind of running things back and forth to the dumpsters, and they were like, hey, what's going on? And then they saw me moving some heavy stuff. It was pouring down rain yesterday in SoCal. And so I was like, well, I can't take things out to where the folks can pick it up, but I can put it under the little awning by my door. So I did a lot of that, and they saw, oh, there's bookcases and lamps and stuff. And they're like, hey, do you need help? And I was like, actually, yes. So they stepped in, and it took us less than an hour to move some really heavy stuff downstairs off the door. Hi, Dagon. And they took some of the items that I was just going to donate or throw away. So I'm happy to help them. They needed some of the things that, were here in the apartment. So yeah, good neighborly stuff happening there.
Stacy
They know
thanks
who-
you, neighbors. It's not sad, guys. It's terrible.
I did, I think, yes. I'm looking to move into a place across town, so stay tuned. And yes, I love your neighbors know the greatest principles are according to Rabbi Akiva. Type it in the chat so that I can spotlight it, for people. But
Excellent.
that's pretty much
I think
it
somebody's
for me in the next week.
arriving because Dagon's losing his mind. So yes, I will be with Vish tomorrow on Dapper Dinosaur's channel. I'll be on Star Trek Endurance here momentarily. Tomorrow night, though, it's Saturday, guys, which means that tomorrow night is another installment of Budget Scripture Saturday. I will be back with the Weasels and with Nitty and with more shitty Bible videos to watch, which are super fun. I'm excited. So that's 7 o'clock Pacific, Saturday night, 10 o'clock Eastern. Make sure you're here. It's always a ton of fun. And then this next week, you missed this, Vish. On Monday last week, I was on Craig McNeil's channel, Fight the Flat Earth.
Oh
with,
yeah. FTFE.
MC Toon and the dinosaur talking about biblical cosmology. I'll be back there on Monday.
Tell him the next time you see him, number one says hi.
All right, I'll do that. MC Toon will not be joining us, so it'll just be the dinosaur and Craig and myself. So that's Monday at 3 o'clock Pacific, 6 o'clock Eastern. And then the next time you'll see us, I guess it'll be me. I'll be doing Kiryat Brit on Thursday night with Justin from Deconstruction Zone.
Hey, all right.
And then we'll be back on Friday. So that's it.
And
thanks for.
I might be safely ensconced in a new place. Bezrat Hashem. Let's go.
That'd be cool. That'd be very cool. So yeah. Thanks everyone.
Bye y'all.
Thanks for coming out. Thank you for your ongoing support for both of us, for Vishanti and myself. We very much appreciate it. I hope you have a good night. Be good, stay safe, and until next time, as always, looking for it. There it is. Hatikva.